Won't bloody go away.
The best ideas anybody ever come up with.
It's entertaining.
Just a relaxed vibe.
He didn't change my life.
Commitment to quality.
Essential.
But that's definitely my daughter's life.
Not the most important thing in my life, MTV.
You helped us stop watching porn.
Greatest music television around.
Even when the bastards don't play our videos.
Well, happy birthday, pal.
MTV is now a household name throughout Europe with 10 dedicated channels and numerous versions to satisfy the audience. But it wasn't always the case.
So I think it's about time that MTV and rock and roll is taken all over Europe.
When MTV Europe kicked off back in August 1987, the region had barely a handful of satellite channels.
I launched MTV in Europe. I was asked if I could entertain the people going on the launch for MTV Europe, and I had to entertain them from Victoria train station all the way to Amsterdam and back.
I remember the outfit I was wearing because it was absolutely horrendous. We're just about to get on board the MTV Europe party train and people are already arriving. Let's see who's here. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
All right, can I sit in your lap?
No, you can't.
What?
You're a man.
I said don't drink too much on the way down.
Who are you then?
I'm Blanche. We dressed up as cleaning ladies, with sort of lipstick on our teeth and our hair up and pinnies on and sort of support tights and slippers. And we had broomsticks and we were sweeping the platform, going, all right, laugh, as they got on. I went, look, it's Donny.
Donny Osmond.
How are you doing? What was Donny Osmond doing there?
Well, he chartered a train, I believe. The inappropriately named Gatwick Express, which took... which wasn't.
This'll be a plane then. I'm scared of flying.
This is great, the cockpit of the aircraft. I've never been in one of these. I'm just going to see what one of these buttons does.
MTV into Europe, it's my birthday. That's great. So, I think that was very well planned of you. Do a birthday,
You meant to do that,
birthday
didn't you?
party in my honour. It just happens to be MTV opening night as well. That's good fun.
The thing I remember most about the actual gig was being stood somewhere in the audience with Fish and Bruce Dickinson from Maiden, watching Terence Trent D'Arby do the entire gig with his back to the crowd. Because everybody was talking and they weren't listening to him. And, you know, I mean, it was kind of like probably not a good idea to have an artist like him on.
What do you think of the party?
I went upstairs and it was like going to a sauna. I'm too old for these things, but it's very nice for these young people to enjoy themselves so much.
I interviewed Elton John, and as is my wont, I had a number of questions written on my hand. So he said, oh, what's that? And I said, oh, it's my handafax. To which Elton replied...
Handafax, best stuff, you know. How can you masturbate with a file of fax?
Well, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so hard.
It spoils the pages, yeah.
I was extremely pleased about this because they ran this the next morning on the news, and it got us our first complaint.
Good evening, bonsoir, goedenavond, goedenavond, buonasera, good afternoon. Ik ben Marcel Vanthilt and this is MTV, Music Television.
A milestone.
Money for nothing, get your chicks for free.
Well, money for nothing and chicks for free. Of course. It goes without saying, doesn't it?
Well, it's the ultimate, it's the rock and roll cliche, isn't it?
I want mine. That was my first impression of MTV. I want my MTV.
The step to bring MTV over from the States was a big move, and one that started out in a small but confident way, with, so the story goes, 2 people coming over carrying an MTV logo in a suitcase.
You had a core of people who knew what they were doing, and then you had a bunch of people who loved what the idea was and what it could become.
Dass eben völlig unglaublich war, dass plötzlich den ganzen Tag über Musik gelaufen ist und Rockmusik und es gab Videoclips.
The question was how European it could get. Whether it would become like a Coca-Cola just waving over Europe rather than become more detailed and more characteristic with the European flavor.
We were definitely looking for people throughout Europe who would represent a more European feel than an American feel.
I want my MTV. Once we started taking the ball and running with it, then all of the Americans said, well, this is not quite how we do it in America, but these Europeans, they're really quirky. Let them go with it.
Music television, MTV. This is our camera, and this is me.
We went straight into the studio. We rehearsed for about a month or 6 weeks, meaning we tried to speak English in front of the camera while announcing videos. And that was difficult. That was the first step. And then the second step was speaking English in front of the camera and walking at the same time from one spot in the studio to the other. That was even more difficult.
Well, there was one VJ that we knew when we were playing clubs, which is a long time ago. Ray.
He was doing the show in Belgium where he was doing all these stunts. He was like climbing on the back of moving locomotives, bending down with his cameraman as they went through a tunnel. The guy was nuts. But we saw tremendous talent, and he was somebody we really wanted.
Oh, they hired Michael because every single male got a complete...
She walks into mine. What's that you're playing?
Just a little something of my own.
Well, stop it. You know what I want to hear.
Why don't you remind me?
You played it for her, you can play it for me.
I seem to have forgotten it today.
If she can stand it, I can. Play it.
Yes, sir.
It was in the I'm glad to be gay days, and I think everyone looked at Steve and Lee and said, well, that's a bit weird, isn't it? Oh, fine, great, fantastic. A bit strange, though.
Get those faggots off my channel.
Steve Blame, huh? That guy? And like, we wouldn't have him. Right, you wouldn't, we would.
We got some interesting, funny, unique, odd, attractive people, and but they were European through and through, and they were very different than the American counterparts, who were much more, I think, glamorous and slick, and we weren't slick.
That's why MTV is the punks, who were going to blow away all the boring old parts, who were making TV shows for young people.
MTV Europe back in the early years was low budget, pioneering, resourceful, and somewhat risque.
If Steve, God forbid, said something that offended me, I could...
Like, where did you get that dog collar?
Right. Well, yes, that might not quite do the trick, but...
Well, I try.
Things like...
How about just look at the state of you.
Oh, now we're getting a bit warm. They're beginning to rile me now.
Do you know what? I would watch that. I'd watch it now. Definitely. I think you want to dig those up the vault. Yeah.
Woe to the hand that shed this costly sausage! Zumba, 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 zo, zumba, zumba, zo, zumba, 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 zo, zumba, zumba, zo.
It was hard to find good talent in those days, and you had to go with whatever you could find and cheap.
Yes, good evening, Europe. You're talking to the Masked Avenger, and I'm talking with Roger, Ian, and the phenomenal Adrian. I've got no pants, Edmondson.
And that's completely true. Ian, give us one of your screams. I'm off.
Well, I beg your pardon. Roger, show us your knob.
And I said, guys, that was so great. Would you mind doing another link? That was like saying to, pyromaniacs, you just set a little fire. Would you like to burn down a building?
Jimi Hendrix is the person who I consider to be...
the most dead person you've met.
No. Much less, he's not a cunt, and he's not a fuck. He's a gunfer.
And they're spraying beer around. I'm thinking someone's going to get electrocuted.
I'm about to jump through this window.
The woman who worked in lighting at the time was screaming at the top of her lungs, "Stop them, there's going to be arcing, people get electrocuted."
It's actually a permanent structure. This hasn't been fixed by MTV at all.
So you see me on camera go like, "No, no, no," and I'm trying to pull them away. They're like, "The floor assistant has told us no," and you know, and then they pushed through the whole thing, and it all went down. It was probably one of the more humorous / dark moments in the history of MTV Europe. And I think that was the last time they were back.
It became a sort of game between us who worked there and tried to get things on air to try and see how far we could go before we irritated the people that would come back to us. And I remember in the Christmas of '87, we did a pantomime. And there was Marcel Vanthilt as the good fairy.
I do remember Steve Blame being, I think, the rear end of a horse.
I was the Brazilian drag queen.
I feel pretty and witty and gay. I like pity. Any girl with me today.
The wall coming down was there was a feeling of belonging at that time, and MTV fitted in there perfectly.
Ultimately, it was all about us being there at a particular part of time, just at the right time, and just being part of it.
MTV is the voice for youth culture, and I think that's a really important thing. It was then, and it certainly is now, even more so probably.
Free your mind, and your ass will follow.
I think that's one of the best things that we did, actually, that we were able to...
diverse talent in 10 regions. Back in the 1990s, one of their number broke the mold and truly became man of the people and friend of the stars.
Ray! Ray! I need to have a word with you, Ray! Ray! Tell me what's big tonight, Ray! What's big? Love you all.
Ray Coates was the kind of presenter who excelled in the niche market of satellite television, using access to all of Europe to push the barriers, getting away with ad-lib conversations and anarchy in his own little private world on MTV.
Nothing different to the other nights, Ray?
No, just the well-tried formula, Steve. It's crap, and we love it.
When we went live, I was terrified, and that's when I started playing with the camera, because I realised that I took control, rather than the director saying, 5, 4, talk a load of rubbish, 2, 1, and you're on.
Rob, give me the camera. No, it's okay, he's just a bit strange about this. Give me the camera. It's okay, Rob.
Not doing it.
That was the moment there in the 90s when people used to walk up to television cameras and try to physically stick their head into the lens.
Or I'll throw something at him. Boom. Ah, you throw something, I'll throw something back. See, and then it just got worse and worse and worse. And it ended with Most Wanted, where the cameraman was as important as Ray was in the end.
Come on, Rob, for God's sake, there's millions of people all over Europe watching.
Back then, it was quite shocking to see somebody be so honest about the process of making TV, and realizing that people really weren't that bothered if, you know, you suddenly brought down a microphone or, you know, showed them the light.
It was fun, and because it was not following the rules. And I always said to everybody, we are not the BBC, we're MTV, you know, let's break the rules here.
Rather than just turn up, yes, no, yeah, no, no, yeah, and play a couple of tunes, you know, it's far more interesting for me, and more time consuming, obviously, but to do this slightly more comedic thing.
What sort of underwear do you wear?
I wear
nappies. Like nappies.
Like nappies. They're absorbent, like nappies.
You know what I really loved about him was a sort of seeming lack of vanity. He didn't care if he looked like a wazzock. In fact, the more he looked like a wazzock, the better. And I really liked that.
Oh, not on camera, am I? Hello.
Have you seen Ray anywhere?
Ray who?
Die Sendung hatte ja sehr, sehr lange Kultcharakter und ich konnte über Ray Coates auch immer herzlich lachen. Also das war ein echt gutes Verhältnis.
I used to love him. Because he'd get out of his chair and round the desk and come up to the camera and start looking and goofing off. The whole thing about it was like, yeah, here we go.
cheap telly. You know, something's going to fall apart, this is going to break, we've got no budget, and it didn't matter.
Why is this a one-man show? Why can't I have help?
I can help you when I come to
He was just a bit mad, you know.
It's a load of crap, this show. It's just me going all the time.
That was a new style of rock and roll. I think it was the first rock and roll, European rock and roll host, you know, have this kind of don't take it too serious, but still respecting also the guests. He was very good in that as well.
What's the song called, Herbert?
It's called Der Montag geht.
Which is?
The Monday's gone.
Ah! You see, I would have called it Boring Tuesday, but Herbert...
It's very boring.
The
it's an extremely boring song.
Is it?
Yeah, it's even more than boring.
Okay,
yeah,
even
really
more boring than a very boring thing. Well, let's hear it. It's the boring Herbert Grönemeyer and his boring Monday's Gone song. Boring.
I loved him. I loved him. I had a big pash on Ray Cokes.
And talk about throwing you in at the deep end, because this is very live and it's out on the streets of London and anything could happen. Hello, Davina.
Hello, Ray, and thank you so much for that introduction. It's Davina's sidekick here.
It was great in the beginning, because when I used to go on holiday, Davina would replace me on Most Wanted. And I never wanted anyone to replace me who was going to be better than me, obviously, because I wouldn't have a job when I came back from holiday. And even though the show was very much my own and someone else couldn't slot into it, Davina did a brilliant job of slotting into it.
I just wanted to ask Neil something. Maybe he could write a song called Davina, because no one ever writes songs about Davinas, do they?
No thanks, Davina, because he's already written a song called Ray, and it's my show, and you can't come
Ray,
on...
thanks a lot.
Once you've owned a show, and it's been yours for many years, and you've been the only person presenting it, it's almost the show's not big enough for two.
I definitely saw in her eyes that she was after fame and fortune, and she wouldn't stop at anything. And I thought, well, one day it's going to be me she's going to step on. So that's why I kept my distance from Davina.
It was appalling. We had kind of weird moments in the dressing room. I would always try and talk to him, but I just got the impression that he didn't really like me.
I got slightly worried towards the end of the run that Davina maybe was getting too good at this and that she would overtake me. And she probably did in career sense, but she didn't get Most Wanted.
Nobody loves me but my mother.
Mother.
And she could be jiving too.
Jiving too.
That's it.
Playing guitar with your favourite bands is always a bit dodgy. There's a fine line between just, you know, being self-indulgent and showing off. Not that I would really be interested in showing off, because I only know 3 chords. But the fact that I did it once with somebody, like B.B. King, Bon Jovi saw it on TV and said, do you want to play guitar with us?
I'm going up, down, down, up, any way you want me to do.
And then The Cure saw Bon Jovi, and The Cure said, do you want to play guitar with us? And I said, well, actually, I must tell you that it's all the cameramen that are doing all the work. They're looking like me doing the guitar solo, but it's not me at all. In fact, my sound's turned way down.
We'll be all right. I've got the chords written here.
Playing harmonica with Aerosmith, that was one of the great highlights.
Hello, drums now.
E17 and singing with them.
I don't think anything's come along that's replaced it that's quite as spontaneous and natural as that. I mean, there are things that are kind of trying to be spontaneous and trying to be anarchic, but it doesn't, you know, they seem a little bit tame in comparison to Ray.
All we watch each night is rain, hoping that it'll be a part of us again someday.
After the success of Most Wanted, Ray was given a weekly show called X-Ray, a big production. In fact, the single most expensive regular program MTV ever made in Europe.
Suddenly on X-Ray, there I was, once a week, with a big show, big lights, big showbiz, and the big star. And I was wrong.
I've got me top stars, Robbie and Lisa Morris. All right, hello, Lisa.
You know, I look back now and realise that it was wrong. At the time, it was just an attempt to get something out of MTV, to make a big show. That because they weren't paying me enough money, I wanted the big show.
It was decided to take the show on the road, going live from Hamburg's notorious red light district.
Yes, hello, good evening and welcome. We are broadcasting this live as it happens. Welcome to Hamburg.
I think all of the things were in the right place at the right time to make a big explosion and to end my career at MTV in style. Someone had made a mistake somewhere in the German press saying that one of Germany's most notorious, anarchic, nasty punk bands called Die Totenhosen would be playing live. And of course they weren't, and they were live via video from Berlin, and I suddenly heard 5,000 people chanting in German at me, very scary. I didn't know what they were saying.
What's wrong?
Das tat uns leid, wir waren ja gar nicht selber unmittelbar beteiligt, ja? Aber ich weiß, dass es da einen Höllenaufstand gegeben hat. Und so ist einer der frühen Helden dann relativ hart und ruppig geendet irgendwie.
You're the worst audience I've ever seen and I don't care!
And I suddenly forgot that I was on TV.
Anybody throws a beer at Nina, I'll come down and see you.
And the bloke in me came out.
Will you please find these bastards who are throwing the beer, because I want to see who it is.
The producer and director was saying in my ear at the time, Ray, there's one of you and 5,000 of them. I think you better back off. And it just got worse and worse and worse and worse.
It's too dangerous out here. Let's go back in. Hamish, I don't care. Let's just go back in. Let's drop this item, and I'm going to stop the show. Go back in. Go back in. I'll come down and smash your head in, OK?
The truth is, we were naive about what we were doing. We didn't really take our programmes out much in those days in any case. So, and we were in a tough part of town. It's almost like saying, come on then, hit me, and they did, of course.
I do not have to put up with this attitude from people, and I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to pull this show off the air, and I don't care what happens with my career on MTV or anything. Yeah, let's fucking go now.
I can't imagine anything better than going out with a huge shit fight controversy. Brilliant, exactly what he should do, yeah. Great, good for him.
I was quite bitter and angry that I'd been blamed for everything and I'd been made a scapegoat, whereas if I'd have just been shown a little mercy and, oh, that was an awful, terrible thing, and, well, anyway, you said a few naughty things, but we'll forgive you, I would still have been there a couple of years later, and I would have done Most Wanted again and probably still be doing it now if I had my way.
Thanks for all of your time over the past 9.5 years. I hope that you'll see us all again. I don't know where, I don't know when, but I have a very strong feeling that it won't be here. Thank you for watching. Rob, we'll miss you. Bye, everyone! Bye! Bye!
Yes! I need to get myself next to Ray.
Ray's departure in 1996 coincided with a drive to tailor MTV Europe to the growing audience. First steps were taken to regionalise. Europe was changing and the audience demanded programmes more tuned to their local scene.
Een hele goede avond.
Oh, Kermit, I've been dying to meet you for all of my life.
You don't have to die to meet me, you can just stay here.
I'm so excited.
I kept saying this is the best day of my life, and up until my wedding day it really was.
Welcome, Miss Piggy, to everyone here in the house. Hello.
Thank you, Enrico.
You're so beautiful. Can I just kiss your hand?
If you have to.
Beautiful.
Well, where's she? Davina, whatever her name is.
Davina.
With a thing in her stomach.
She's over there. I got a thing in my nose.
Tell her to get away from my frog.
I'm fine with your frog. He likes hanging out with me, actually, Piggy.
Piggy,
I'm
I think you should get one of these.
Yeah, he says he wants you to do this.
But first, before you get one, Piggy, you have to get a flat stomach, I'm afraid.
Davina, be nice.
Did not go down very well.
You have to be nice to her because she's sweet. She's beautiful. She's hot. I kind of like her, you know.
Oh, shut up! What did you say? What did you say?
If you were going to pierce something, what would you pierce?
You. You asked for it.
Thanks for coming in here today.
Thank you for having me here.